All right, for this one, we're going to do a few little sketches, but then actually really look at how we can compose things to make a presentation in our sketchbook. So with this one, I'm just going to quickly sketch out an idea of a design in Axon. So I'm kind of making just a quick little rough sketch. I like the idea of maybe there's a big chunk of this cut away. I'm kind of ghosting, like I'm cutting this whole chunk out. Notice I'm starting by drawing the whole thing, and then I'm starting to subtract pieces away. Maybe the whole top of this is like rotated and extends out. Like I took the top and rotated it around or something, so I start to get just making up some design elements. So let's say, that's, I want it on the same. Okay, and maybe this chunk right here, maybe it's divided into, if they all extend out. So let's say like these. This whole chunk was divided and extruded out. Maybe maybe a chunk of this is coming out too. Let's just cut a chunk of this out. This is the nice thing about kind of designing in Axon when you work lightly. So that is now extruding that out this way. Okay, so a quick little sketch. Now, what I want to do is, so let's say we worked on one little drawing, we kind of understand in Axon what's happening here. And now, if I want to just, I'm using an HB, and I'm just going to quickly, I like HB as just kind of a mid, but I can get hard lines where I want hard lines, right? But it still works light enough. It's kind of the ultimate mid pencil for me. Notice I'm kind of like doing all the similar lines at the same time to try to keep them parallel to each other, way of straightening everything up. So even though I might have been a little sloppy, I shouldn't have lined those up so much. It gets a little confusing when those line up. If I would have separated them out a little more, it probably would have been a little easier to read. Songs making me draw faster. It's funny. Okay, just so that reads a little bit. The edge in the background. Okay, so now what I want you to do is you kind of roughed out something. Now it reads a little more. Now what I want to do is kind of sketch a little perspective and imagine as if we were standing way over here looking back. So on the other side, the idea of like visually being able to spatially visualize an object and view it from the other side is kind of a fundamental mental exercise that architects do. That's how we think. So it's worth always kind of working on that. So we're going to draw a perspective from the other side. I'm going to start by horizon line. I'm going to take this edge that would be on that back side and say that's my measuring device. I'm going to say the height of this is, let's say 12 feet, let's say 15 feet. So that's 5, if I make my scale, that's 5 feet, there's another 5 feet, there's the height, right? Now I've got a scale to this. I'm going to have it looking off in the distance. I'm going to put a vanishing point over there and start there and there. Now if that was 15 feet high and let's say it was thirds, that'd be like 45 in width, right? So, or is it almost kind of half? Let's make it chunkier. Let's say this was 15 by 30. So this is what's interesting is even though this is in perspective, I can take the plane right at this point, right at that corner, go the 15 over, and go 15 again over. And now depending on where I put this other vanishing point, and if we were really working at this, we could lay out a floor plan and understand exactly where the vanishing point is. I'm going to be kind of making this up, looking at what appears to be a nice 90-degree corner in perspective. So I'm kind of making up this point to make it look right, to make it feel as if I was looking at a corner of a building that feels like it would be 90 degrees. But now because this is in that plane, I can then take that line back, and that is that 30 feet in perspective, right? I measured in this plane, I could bring that back, and now I have that height. I can also at the same time, if it was 15 feet wide, I can go another 15 feet direction this way, bring it back to there, and there is the depth. So that wall is that backside on that side over there, right? So now I'm looking at this, let's say about a quarter of it. That would be a quarter of it. There's 3/4 of it. 1/4 of it is, let's say, where this box, that right there is, right? So now I've got that. I've got this roof kind of split over it, meaning half the distance and half the distance. Okay, so that's where those 2 points of where that roof would be. Extend out, extend out. Now, getting this, I can get distance out the same way I can get distance back if I'm figuring out how far out it's gone. Let's see where. If I want to get, let's say, 15 feet out, I could take and say, if I take the measure, the midpoint of that, and come through it, that would be where 15 feet would come out to. Measuring in perspective. All right, so then I got these things extending out, right? And so let's say it doubles its distance again. So that'd be, sorry if I was off the thing. Double it again, I'm about way over here, right? So if I move that and then kind of bring back, that's about here. So that farthest one is about here, right? There's lots of ways. Let's say I want to divide this whole area in half. So I could take that dimension back here, angle it back, it's about there. I'm just ghosting that in. Right now I'm just gonna rough in, let's say, how could we have some fun with this? Well, I want that bottom edge there too. Let's say it's a little below my eye height. There's that front edge. That edge comes back a ways. I can bring this back edge. Now that's that back corner, but I've got a thickness of this wall, right? So I could say, well, that thickness, let's say it's about that thick. That is the actual edge I'd be seeing. And that back corner is underneath there, about here. That would be the back corner. There's the edge. Just constructing that. Okay. Now I also chopped out that chunk, right? So I could actually come back in and say, look, I chopped out this chunk Okay. I'm just going to rough these in right now. Just kind of right off the edge over there. And they're kind of floating, maybe they're just floating out here. All right, so now trying to understand what's happening here. If I wanted this to read pretty well, I could actually pick all of these. That kind of gets to read. All right. Now what I want to look at is, so let's say we've got this. We're kind of understanding it from one side, we're understanding it from the other. Now we want to actually create a presentation from this. I am now this is just like a little tiny sketchbook. This might be something you might have little kind of daily sketches or something that you're working on as we're going, but then we want to do a presentation of this. So now I want to look at these, and I'm going to take kind of a nice sketchbook, something that's got some nice paper in it. This is kind of a dramatic size. Up a little bit. And I'm going to look at how do I want to create a presentation in this. And so this might be when I'm going to do something kind of nice. All right, so I'm looking at this. My rule I'm going to tell you guys is just always tell the viewer what is important to you. So select what's important. It's not the whole thing that's important. There's some idea that's important. Let's say it's, kind of the two biggest ideas that I see here is kind of this big thing or the repetition of that. So this thing, repetition of that. So it's kind of what do I want to, make most important. Actually, I don't like how long this one is, but I think that element, this roof encapsulating something, seems really dramatic. So I'm going to quickly do a thumbnail of how we could lay this out. So let's say if it is all about that wedge, I want you to, when you're composing something, I want you to always think that one drawing is most important and the other thing is like 2/3, 1/3. No, actually 3/4, 1/4. One of the drawings is going to be dominant and tell us what it is. The other one is an accent. So what happens if that little axonometric is like this big or something? And now we get this nice, big, long, big perspective. We can render that on the page, but there's something up there, right? That could work. Another way I could do it is maybe the big perspective, a lot of white space. Maybe I even do the little axonometric the other way right up here. So that kind of, that kind of works. I could actually look at doing some kind of interesting framing with the sky that way, maybe, or maybe. Now it's all about, maybe it's even. What's that? Like that one. All right. So now I've got an idea of how I'm going to compose my board. Now I'm going to take it. Now I've got this super drama wide angle. So actually I can go even farther with this. So I'm going to now start to lay this out, looking at these. So I'm going to go. I can go pretty low here with this horizon line, really light, and I'm going to start with some really light lines, just framing this out as much as I can. Yeah, let's keep that way over there. And I'm going to tuck this up that being that line, mark, mark, mark. All right. And all right. And you can fast forward through this because I really am just going to construct these two drawings in this space. Okay. Doubled it. That's about the last one. That's that far one. All right, now I want this roof to be a little nicer. I didn't like how far that came out. I like the idea. This will be so designing in perspective, like what do you want it to feel like, right? So I had it coming from about half of this, and I like that it was coming. Actually, I wanted it actually 15 the same width. So let's say it's going from here. 15 would be to here. Come back. That's where it would be. So a little wider. And I like it about that. Feels nice. All right, let's get that back corner. It was kind of tricky because I can go the 15 the other way and bring it back. I can bring that. Outer corner. Now we want to give a thickness to that back wall. That was that back edge. And now I want to knock out that back wall a bit, so I'm going to give it a thickness. Here's my big knock. And it's going from that corner back. Thickness. Yeah. Now we're going to do a little better on this. So if I measure out, let's say it's 1/4. Let's say that was. Yeah. So let's say it's that thick. The first one's that thick. So all I have to do is then bring this back. Oh, I didn't do that well. That should have been about here. All right. Here's the first one. Do a gap. There's the thickness. Okay, next one. And all right. That was the edge, and let's say it's sitting right on that. Now, I like the idea there's a gap. We're going to push it back off a little bit, because then I get a little gap there. Okay, boom, 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 boom. All right, so we're getting that roughed out. Notice I'm not finishing it, I'm just getting it roughed out. Now, the idea of, I want to put this up here, but I don't want it to compete with this in the same way. It's not about two drawings feeling the same size. So I'm actually going to reduce this to probably, I don't know, at least half the size of this, right? And so I'm looking at this, and I want this to have this nice kind of feel on the page. I don't want that thing to be bigger than probably this right here. So what I'm doing is I'm first figuring out what is the size that I want this to not compete and make this important, right? So if I want it to be about this big total, I'm going to start with getting that axon line. A little smaller. I'm going to do it not that big. All right, so all right. Now on this board I've got this, and I've got this, and I've got some kind of powerful white space around it. You can start to have some fun with how we render this out. Now I'm going to do a cheat, and you might notice if you go back and look at Tara's super nice little sketches, you'll notice that all of hers have these really sharp, crisp lines. A nice habit to do is to get used to drawing. I want you to work on your hand so that you can draw straight lines as you're working something out. But a lot of times I'll come back and I'll finish the drawing using pens, but also using a ruler or a straight edge. So I'm using, I like using pretty dramatic, no, not those two. I like, well, I'm going to use 3. I might use 005 and 03, really small, pretty medium size, and then every once in a while I'll punch something with a 0.8, so like a big, so my heavy line is like drastically heavy. 05 is nice too, but I'm going to actually not use 05, but kind of use these two for most of the drawing, and then pop something out with that. So I might start with the 05 and just kind of knock out as many things. But so now all of a sudden this is where I can actually come in and correct my drawing really quickly, right? So now, and again, I'm not worried about when we let lines cross each other as kind of like an architectural drawing does. Just getting myself to be able to see this correctly. You can see where I need to fix those. Actually, I'm not going to draw that one. only because I'm going to put in grass or something. Bad Spotify commercials. Oh, that goes all the way back there. Up, I could do that. I could actually come, be like, ooh. Oh, there's something about that. Something about following it graphically. I'm kind of playing off this line, but starting here, and I'm going to come over and hit kind of midway, almost in the exact same spot on that. All right. happens if I have the 0, 3. I'm going to start calling out spatial edges and making things pop. So I'll really pop those later. All right, that just popped a bit. Let me do the outside here. It's amazing how much this will help the perspective. That's where I messed up, was really that line when I was building this out. That should be there. That should be a gap. You know what? I'm going to go to the 008 because I really want this to read as this floating object. Okay, you notice I went over all the corners so they were kind of dramatic. What I'm doing is, because there's so actually little detail in this drawing, what I've done by crossing those points is I'm adding a little visual interest and detail to the object I want the person to look at. So now all of a sudden there's a little bit of detail there just because those tips are crossing, which is bringing interest into that. All right, now, same way, I'm going to take, I might do the 005 for this. And I'm going to do kind of a faint dashed line. I'm going to do the same thing with the horizon line. It's just a start to see that there. All right, well, that's a good start. So when we talk about how you're going to be working in sketchbooks and things, this could be done in a sketchbook. You might have one sketchbook that's just all presentations. It's kind of a nicer paper or something like that. We'll also look at how we could do this exact thing by doing these sketches first this way, maybe scanning them, putting them into concepts, maybe drawing them in Concepts app, and drawing them separately in separate files the same way we did this, but then bringing them together and composing them on a board by using, in essence, the idea of kind of Illustrator and InDesign, but through Concepts apps. So I'm challenging you, we don't always need to fill the whole page. I could easily add a really killer border. I'm looking at this. And I could put some text right there. That'd be a nice board. Okay.